Hello, guys. Nice to see that you're joining. I think we will give everyone a minute or two to be able to, follow the link from their email or calendar and join up with us. And then, of course, we will kick off with the topic of today's webinar, which is how to successfully migrate from Microsoft project to BigPicture in Jira. In the meantime, if you can just confirm on the chat that you can hear me and see me, that would be perfectly awesome. Okay, yes, now I can see that you're confirming. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So it's 1 minute past the scheduled time, and I think we are absolutely ready to start. So first of all, thank you all for attending today's webinar. I really appreciate to have you all here. We have the sound and video already checked. Note that on the right side, you also have the access to the chat. Some of you have already used it. There is also a tab over there that allows you to input the questions. It's called Q&A. So if you have a specific question, put it over there. I will look at the questions at the end of the webinar so that we do not take any interruptions in between, because we want to fit into a time frame which is more or less 1 hour. So we'll try to wrap everything up in 60 minutes. The topic that we're going to be discussing today is how to successfully migrate from Microsoft project to BigPicture in Jira. And the idea for this webinar and this topic of the webinar actually came from our customers, because more or less half of our customers, when I'm talking with them about why they are going into BigPicture and what drove them into this idea, most of them say that, well, we have been working with Microsoft project, but then we also have Jira, and we've learned somewhere that there is a great way of actually managing our projects inside the Jira environment. So we were looking for an alternative to MSP, and therefore we stumbled upon BigPicture, right? So that's where the idea for the webinar came from. And this is what we will be talking about today mostly. And of course, I will give you in the second part of the webinar, I will also give you a glimpse of the tool, BigPicture itself, so that you can also see, probably, well, not all of them definitely, because it takes a lot of time to show everything, but some of the most interesting prominent features of BigPicture itself. Before we go into that, I do have to say a few words about our company. So first of all, that you know that I am speaking to you from the position that guarantees you that the content that you're going to get and information you're getting is really legit and supported by many years of experience. And second of all, so that you know that if you in the future decide that you want some help in terms of training, maybe implementing also BigPicture and any other tools for project management inside the Atlassian ecosystem, we are here for you. So I personally have a little bit more than 15 years of experience working as a project manager and also as a team leader, which I think qualifies me to be training people in project management tools, because I already have a lot of my own baggage of experience, which I can always relate the tool to, so that I can share that then this experience with regard to the tool with my audience, which I always try to do during every training that I deliver. We also have around 5 years of experience training and implementing BigPicture and other PMO solutions inside the Atlassian environment, which means that we are practically working with BigPicture, which is a product of Software Plant, a great company from Poland, from almost the very beginning, and it's been a blast. I know that there are some people from Software Plant on this meeting as well, so I always appreciate you guys. Thanks a lot for all of your support. What else? We also have, as a company, a proven implementation tactic supported by constantly updated checklists and the pros and cons documentation, which we use to help our customers implement the tool successfully. Why is it important? It's important because BigPicture is no longer, the simple tool that it was several years ago. It has quite a lot of features and quite a lot of configuration options, and it has to be working on top of the Jira environment as well, right? So that adds another layer of complexity, which means that it's a tool that you can successfully use for managing your projects, and nothing is wrong with that. But you should take a little bit of time considering how to best configure the tool to actually reap all the benefits that you can get out of this, right? And being the beginner in the tool makes it not so easy. So this is where we come in, and we help you realize what would be best for you, which scenario, which configuration would work best for your particular circumstances, so that you can successfully be working with the tool later on when we are gone. We also went as far as creating our own video training for BigPicture. So we are the only partner on the market that currently has it, which I think it kind of proves that we are really into this. And when we are talking about project management solutions inside the Atlassian ecosystem, this is our go-to solution, and we are only changing this to something else if, for whatever reason, the customer really doesn't want to go with BigPicture, maybe already has another tool and just requires the training in another tool because it has been already purchased. But if we have a say in this, we always try to convince people that actually BigPicture is the solution that they should completely go to, because it has all the important features. Doesn't matter if you're working waterfall or Agile, BigPicture has you covered. As I mentioned, we also do trainings, so we are completely flexible in terms of the training agenda, and we always talk with our customers first before the training to figure out what would be the best approach to the training, and we can do live trainings. We have video trainings as well. So on this front, you're also covered. Last thing, delivering BigPicture. We also deliver BigPicture training and implementation services on behalf of some of the biggest Atlassian partners around the world. So this kind of proves that we are recognized on the market, and we know what we are doing. If you would like to contact us, I will also provide this information later on at the end of the session, but these are the email addresses. So the first one is the general training address if you want to ask about the training. The second one is my personal address if you want to, for some reason, contact me directly and talk with me. We do offer a free consulting session if you would like to talk about how we can help you implement the tool, or even if the tool is really good for you and you want to talk more about the features of BigPicture itself, feel free to contact us and we will schedule a session, completely no charge for this. So don't hesitate at all. All right, so now coming back to Microsoft Project. Why were the customers really migrating from Microsoft Project? So every time I hear this, I'm a very curious person, so I always ask, why are you doing this, right? And there are several answers that we usually hear. The first one is that Microsoft Project is too expensive. And this is understandable because it has been on the market for a long time. It has a huge position in the market. I like to say that Microsoft Project is like the grandfather of all the project management solutions or tools. So there is no saying about that. It is an expensive tool. Some people also say that it has too many features, which they don't really need, right? But I think that the most important aspect that also gets mentioned is that Microsoft Project is a tool for managing projects, right? But managing projects, it's not only about the tools, it's also about processes, right? And this is what Microsoft Project doesn't have. And this is why BigPicture actually is a very good solution for managing projects, because it's strictly connected with Jira in the background. And Jira essentially, well, Jira is many things, but I like to simplify it. And I usually say that Jira is just a process management tool, right? So then you have a process management tool, and on top of it, you have a project management tool, and they very nicely cooperate together, allow you to have a full solution for your projects, starting with processes, going through your project level items that the people can work on, and then having the visualization of everything, like your work breakdown structure, like your sprints, like your objectives inside BigPicture with the very modern design as well. So so this is why the customers are migrating from Microsoft Project. And now, why they are migrating to BigPicture and not other add-ons, for example, in Jira? Well, I think that, as I mentioned, BigPicture is the best add-on currently on the marketplace. It has a proven record with all their 10,000 active instances currently, lots of features, great team, and a very helpful support standing behind the tool. And it's also evolving all the time, adding new features and expanding, which is also always appreciated, because the tool that is standing in place is going backwards, right? So how does BigPicture fill the gap then, right? So obviously, Microsoft Project can do a lot of things, but there are some things missing. How does BigPicture fill this gap? Well, first of all, it is embedded in Jira, right? So we already know that it has a process management tool underneath it. So that's very good. Second of all, it's fully integrated with your daily tasks that the team, the project team is working on, right? So Jira has those processes. The processes, of course, are attached to your issues. Jira calls them issues, tasks, user stories, whatever you want to call them. But these are the elements that people are using day by day to track their time, realize what's actually going to happen today, what they should be working on, to log their work progress, change statuses, put comments over there, stuff like this, right? And BigPicture is reusing all that. So you have this tool that is no longer just an abstract map of what is going to be happening inside your project, but you actually have a list of tasks that are then distributed to your team members, and everybody is aware of what is going to be happening. Everybody knows what to do. The tool allows them to communicate freely, to link elements together to one another, and to record all the important information on the level of those issues, which is very, very important, because this leads us very nicely to the fact that thanks to this, you actually get what I like to call the instant statuses of your project, right? So you no longer have to go as a project manager from maybe team leader to team leader, or from person to person, ask what is happening inside your tasks and what is the progress, what is the status. If the people are reporting all that information in Jira, you're actually getting that instantly. And what you can do is react to problems that might emerge, right? So maybe somebody is late, maybe somebody, I don't know, forgot to report their time. But I think that part of the job, and I think that annoying part of the job, is actually not needed anymore. And you can focus and spend your time on more important things. So that's always very, very good, I think. You also have resources already available, because in Microsoft Project, you have to define your resources one by one. Inside Jira, you already have Jira users, and then BigPicture is again reusing these users to use them as your project team members, for example. And of course, inside the tool, you can still manage their workload plans, holiday plans, absences. So basically everything that you might need. And I guess that on top of that, I might add that it's also a very mature tool that I've also already mentioned, with everything that you will need, with actually one important exception, I have to say, unfortunately. So let's get into the part where I have to say that, of course, BigPicture, as any other tool, is not perfect. And in my opinion, one of the biggest downfalls of BigPicture is that it doesn't cover budgeting. So it has no budgeting features. The good thing is that Jira is organized around add-ons. So of course, you can get budgeting from another add-on, at least at this point in time, because I truly believe that in the near future, Software Plant is going to be working, and maybe already is working, on a budgeting feature, and we are going to get it one way or another, whether it's going to be inside BigPicture or integration with any other plugin on the marketplace currently that allows users to do it. I'm sure that we are going to get budgeting sometime in the future. Then, of course, I could, list lots of many things that Microsoft Project does and BigPicture doesn't do, because, as I said, Microsoft Project is a very, very, very old tool and has lots of features. But then again, many customers are actually complaining that some of the things over there are not really necessary and they have never used it in their life, right? So I'm going to just mention 3 things that I kind of feel that would be really cool to have in BigPicture as well. So one thing is automatically calculated fields. So Microsoft Project allows you to create a field and put the formula inside that will make this formula automatically calculate some values and then give that value to you as a result in the end. So this might be an equation. This might be also something that will color the field in a certain way. So I think that that's pretty cool and would be really nice to have. Another thing that is very simple, but also a little bit complicated because we are located inside the Jira environment and not just as a separate tool, that is auto-numbering, right? So Microsoft Project allows you to auto-number things. So especially if you have your work breakdown structure and you have the hierarchy with parents and children, then it might be sometimes easier to look at the data if you would have the numbers on the left side. So Microsoft Project does that. BigPicture doesn't. I kind of understand why, because we have issues in the background and you would have to change the name of those issues, but maybe some custom column that would hold those numbers, maybe it's still doable. And the last thing that I very often stumble upon while working with the customers is not enough reporting on the level of the tool. So the BigPicture has a reporting plugin. In my opinion, this plugin is covering some basic reports, but if you really want some more advanced reporting, well, there are several things that we are doing with our customers. So first of all, some of the data can actually be taken out from other modules of BigPicture. So, if you need a report, doesn't mean that you always have to go to the reporting plugin. Sometimes you just have to go to the Gantt module or your board module and maybe do the export over there to a file, whether it's a graphical file or Excel file or CSV file. One way or another, you can get some actually quite a lot of reports out of BigPicture. Although I do think that it would be good to have the more robust reporting plugin, because reporting is always a very important part of project management. Then you also have some default gadgets which are embedded in Jira, and you can use them on Jira dashboards. But if you know what that means, don't worry about it. We're not going to get into the details of it anyway. Then you can also use some more advanced reporting plugins that are built in the Atlassian ecosystem and can be bought in addition to Jira. So because BigPicture is working on top of Jira and is reusing Jira data, you can actually get another plugin that will do the reporting, because it will reuse the same data that BigPicture is working on, right? So it's a win-win, and you can also use this plugin for other reports, not only for those that you have inside BigPicture, but also for other Jira projects that maybe you're not using BigPicture for. So it could be a pretty interesting solution one way or another. Okay, so what does BigPicture bring to the table in addition to what Microsoft Project already has? Because there are some features like this as well. And I've listed just 3 things over here. Doesn't mean, again, that it's a full list, but I think these are the most important ones. So first of all, the Agile planning in BigPicture, I think it's done better. So Microsoft Project is attempting to do that, but for the very long time, MSP has been a really waterfall-focused tool, right? And they are turning a little bit towards the Agile environment, but this turn is very gentle, in my opinion, and it's not really doing exactly what it should be doing. So it has some basic features, but it's not a robust solution in this area. Jira by itself actually is doing a pretty good work over here, and then BigPicture is actually adding on top of this a few more very interesting features, like the objective-based planning, and also like an advanced board where you can manage multiple teams at the same time. You can synchronize your BigPicture boards with your Jira boards as well, so that people working somewhere at the bottom of your project, so the devs, the test team, the people that are doing all kinds of implementations or low-level process solutions, actually can work even outside of BigPicture. And then BigPicture will still be able to synchronize with their data and import, of course, everything that is important in regards to the project that we are managing. So that's definitely one area that is worth mentioning. The other one, the second one, is risk management. So BigPicture has a dedicated risk module, which is also pretty cool because it allows you to manage your risks in a very visual way. It has some nice features. We will definitely touch the risk module during our presentation that I will start very, very soon. And the last thing that is also worth mentioning is the concept of boxes that has been introduced with BigPicture 8, which came, I think, during the last quarter of last year. So we are already 1 year after the introduction of BigPicture 8 and boxes. And boxes basically allow you to organize your projects into containers, right? So the box is like a container, and a very cool thing is you can stack those boxes on top of one another. So you can create a hierarchy of it. So think about it in a way that you can have smaller boxes inside bigger boxes, and on the bigger box you can have an even bigger box. So you can kind of build a hierarchy out of that, which gives you a lot of interesting opportunities. For example, you can break your project into smaller pieces and change a little bit the way that those smaller pieces are being managed, displayed, configured, right? Also, you can put portfolios or programs on top of your existing boxes that are holding your projects, which again gives you another layer of visibility into your data on the higher level. So for example, you can prepare some views like that for your higher ups, CEOs, directors, anyone who would be interested in a high level view of what is happening in the organization. So I think this is really interesting, done in a very smart way and very, very useful. Okay, so having said that, I think it's definitely time to have a look at the tool itself. So let me switch to the screen sharing, and you should be able to see that screen. I'll wait a few moments so that you can confirm that the screen is actually visible. So if someone can on the chat confirm that everything is fine, that would be pretty awesome. I know that there is a small delay, that's why I'm waiting, but I think that you should be able to see it. Okay. Perfect. All right. So let's kick off with the presentation of the tool itself. So I think that the first area that I want to show you is the home screen. So the home screen is like the dashboard of everything that is happening inside BigPicture in terms of all the initiatives that are being captured over here. I call them initiatives, business initiatives, projects, right? There is different nomenclature all around the world, and companies are calling it differently. But basically, let's assume that these are your projects or your portfolio views, right? And this is your starting screen. Of course, the list of elements you would see over here depends on your security access rights. So I'm here, the admin on the instance, so I see everything. But of course, the people that would have less access right would probably see only their boxes and their projects and nothing else on the list. But what is cool is that you already get some very nice summaries of your projects on this view. So you get the status summary if you're working with statuses rather than with estimates and time tracking. But if you are working with estimates and time tracking, you also get very detailed summaries for your projects in terms of those values. So already a pretty useful element to start with. Then if you go inside one of the projects, so I will be using, I think, probably 3 of them during this presentation, you will see that there are several different modules available. So I can see the list of modules over here. And if you're not planning to use some of those modules, they can be hidden, but I have all of them over here just for the presentation purposes. The first one, and probably the most popular one really, is the Gantt. Gantt got completely redesigned, completely rewritten with BigPicture 8. So nowadays it's looking really, really cool, and it's also working very well. So I will actually switch to a different project to show you the Gantt, because maybe the Gantt chart will actually look a little bit more attractive than what I have in my demo project, right? So have a look at that one, right? That's probably something that everyone will immediately understand. We have some tasks that are starting our project. They are around analysis. Then we have some design. Then we have some preparation of the infrastructure, implementation, testing, some documentation. And we can see like the work is progressing through our project, right? So this is a standard work breakdown structure with the visualization of the Gantt chart. But the module itself over here, of course, offers a lot of different features and functions that allow you to manage the data. So first of all, everything that you can see here on the left side in terms of the data is fully manageable. So you can, of course, add new fields from Jira, new custom fields from Jira. Everything that the Jira has to offer in terms of the data can be visualized over here. On the right side, you, of course, can use the dependencies that you can see on the chart over here. You can color the boxes either manually, or you can enable the status coloring so that then you can immediately see which status the box is in. You can enable, for example, the progress of work on the level of boxes. Then they are colored according to how far they already got in terms of the progress. So lots of interesting things in that regard as well. But what I like the most is that we've already mentioned several times that these are all Jira tickets, and basically people working on those tickets in Jira would be, for example, changing some information regarding those tickets. So let's change, for example, to Essentials view, which will give us the status update, right? So you can see that basically all of those tasks are not started yet. So if I would open one of those tasks in Jira and have a look at it on the Jira screen like this, and I would change the status of this task to be in progress like this, and go back to the previous view, we can immediately see that this information has been already displayed over here without me refreshing the screen, without doing anything, right? So it's very seamlessly integrated with all the Jira data, and the updates over here are almost instantaneous, which is so cool. I love it, really. Then populating this area, so populating your work breakdown structure, is also very nice. You have simple buttons over here that allows you to add new Jira issues, to add Jira issues as subtasks. Of course, you can create the hierarchy over here, and the levels of the hierarchy are basically unlimited. There are two ways of creating that hierarchy. It either can be manual or it can be more automated. I usually advocate my customers to go with the latter one, although it requires a little bit more knowledge, but after the training, you're completely fine with using it. It is safer though, so that's why I recommend it always. But an important element over here is you can also import from file. And one of the files you can import from is MSP file. So you can actually import your data from Microsoft Project. So if you are working in Microsoft Project and you want to migrate to BigPicture, there is actually a way that helps you to do it right. It's not the only one, because this one is limited to a defined subset of data. It actually imports only name, start and end dates, the hierarchy information, and the dependency information. Sometimes it might not be enough. Then we are helping our customers to migrate through the CSV files, which can extend the range of data that can be imported from Microsoft Project. So that can be absolutely done as well. The thing I like over here is grouping tasks. It is available also in MSP. But over here, it's done very nicely, especially with BigPicture 8 in a visual way. So you can quite nicely see over here, for example, that we have two tasks that are in progress. They are nicely captured over here on the Gantt chart. Then we have a huge bundle of tasks that are in to-do state, and they are also nicely captured over here. You can, of course, collapse them completely if you want to expand them. And it's just, nice. And of course, you can also, well, maybe not of course, but you can also group by several factors at the same time, which is kind of cool as well. I really like this functionality because it allows you to get a completely different view of your data. So instead of just work breakdown structure, you can reshuffle it with just a few clicks and have a completely different view of your data. You can also combine it with filtering. So there are several different ways of filtering your data. You can use the quick filters that are predefined for you. You can use date range filters with start and end date. You can also use just text filters or even JQL filters if you know what they are. And again, I'm not going to go into the details of this. What else? Well, there are several features in a view that are worth mentioning as well. So baselines, this is something that project manager would probably be looking for one way or another. There are overdue tasks that can be highlighted for you immediately. So I have some here, right? So it's showing me that these tasks should already be done, actually this one as well, but they are not. So they are marked as an overdue. So super quick way of figuring out what is actually late in your project. There's also a critical path, so you can highlight the tasks that belong to the critical path. We can clearly see that only the last 3 are actually on the critical path and the others are not, because there is actually 1 day of free time over here at the end of the project. So actually, if I would move everything by 1 day, everything would probably be, or almost everything, on the critical path as well. One of the last two more things I want to mention over here is that you can also have a sneak peek at your resources, which is also pretty cool, right? So there is a dedicated resources module in BigPicture, but over here you can already have a glimpse of how your resources look like in terms of the workload. And of course, the colors are already indicating you where it's okay, where it's not okay. We can, for example, see that Agnes is overloaded with work over here. Eileen is overloaded with work over here. And, this gives us an important information that we can now go and do something about it. And the last important thing I want to mention inside the Gantt is that there are also alternative scenarios. So I'm looking at the live scenario now, which means that I'm synchronizing data with Jira immediately all the time. But I could switch to an alternative scenario, which is like a what-if scenarios, right? So we would like to mess around with my project plan and see, how it would work if I would reshuffle things a little bit on the timeline. Then I can switch to the alternative scenario, switch off the synchronization with Jira, play around with stuff, and then if I like it, sync it back to Jira and merge it with the live scenario, or just discard it and forget about it and go back to the original one. So that's a pretty cool concept that also came with BigPicture, right? A very big step forward too. All right, so from the Gantt, let's have a look at the resources. The resources module is, of course, for managing the work of your people inside the project. And actually, I'm thinking that for this one, it would be good to switch to this project because it will have a little bit more data, right? There we go. So the way I like to look at this is with the workload and the capacity turned on. So I will turn this off for a moment. So we will be looking at the workload and the capacity, but I will also turn off capacity for a moment just to simplify the view, right? So with this kind of view, you can see how many hours are basically assigned to the person on a given day, and coloring helps you figure out whether it's too much or just enough, and of course allow you to then do something about it, right? So for example, we can quickly identify some areas where people are overloaded, and we can then try to do something with the tasks that are causing the problem, right? So for example, here we have a task, and we might immediately from this level try at least to extend the task so that the hours are actually manageable by the person, right? So we can see that if I extend the task by 2 more days, suddenly red becomes yellow and the task is doable by the user called admin over here. So you can, from this level, you can immediately do something regarding this information that you get about the resource planning. But that's not all, because you can also quickly change the way you're looking at the data. So we're currently looking at the monthly view, right? So we have 1 month worth of data in our screen, but we can switch it to a quarter, we can switch to half a year, but you can also change the aggregation of data, right? So instead of looking at the data day by day, maybe you want to have a more broader picture, right? And you can look at your data aggregated by a week or by a month, and then let's zoom out to half a year and see that it gives you a pretty nice view of what has been happening, for example, in your project for the past several months. Which might be an interesting also way of, for example, taking a summary of how certain people are performing in the past months, so that you can use that information, for example, to do better planning for the future, right? So that's pretty useful from time to time. Another thing that I like a lot over here is that you can also switch to the teams view, right? So currently we're looking at the individuals and what individual people are assigned to in our project, but I can also switch to teams view. So of course, teams are definable over here as well. We have a dedicated teams module where you can go and define the teams, say which people are in which team. Then on the level of every person, you can define workload plans, holiday plans, which kind of creates their availability, their capacity. So this is how you then, or how BigPicture then knows how much time can actually be allocated to a specific person or a specific team, because of course, the summary of capacities of all the people in the team make the capacity of the whole team itself. So that's pretty cool. And This view, it again has been missing for some time, but when it was finally added, it solved a very important problem that many customers were facing. So when they were trying to do the resource planning for the long term, it was really hard, because what I heard very often is, how can I do the long-term planning and create, our portfolio project plan for the next year, when here I have to assign my tasks to individuals? I have no idea which individual is going to be working on which task, because I don't have this level of granularity, right? So now you don't have to, because now with the team-based planning over here, you can assign your tasks to teams, and this level you should know when you're doing the planning of your project. And then based on those teams, you can of course do the resource planning, because you can see that, for example, some team would be overloaded, which is an indicator that if you actually want all of the tasks assigned to the team or projects assigned to the team happening, you have to expand that team to bring more resources into it, right? So this view allowed us to do the long-term planning or the rough planning for the longer future, and then of course at some point you will get to the time where you can get to be a little bit more specific. The project can be a little bit more detailed. Tasks can be broken into smaller pieces and then assigned to individuals. And that's of course a great time to switch to the individual management of your work and work over there. All right. Yeah, so I think these are the most important things regarding the resources. Maybe one more thing that I will add over here is that there is a very cool feature also connected with BigPicture Enterprise, which is like an extension of BigPicture, that allows you to show the overall assignment of the people that you are currently looking at, right? So we are currently looking at the people from my project team, right? So my demo project has several teams, and these are people from my project teams. Not all of them, but the ones that are assigned to tasks that are happening in this time period that I'm looking at, right? But that sometimes is not a full picture, because what if you're working in a company that is allowing people to work on several projects at the same time, right? Then you might be wondering, okay, so I can see that this person is in green over here, but I'm only looking at tasks from my project. What is this person working on other projects, right? So if you're wondering that, there is a button that allows you to import all the data from all the other projects into this view as well. And then other tasks are kind of semi-transparent, like these 3 long tasks. And then you can see that, okay, admin actually has just 1 task in my project, but also 3 other tasks coming from different other projects, right? So of course, if these tasks would have some estimates, and they don't really, because we can see that this 0.5 hours are coming from 2 different tasks only, not from 4. Then the estimates here would be also updated, and if it would exceed the availability of the person, then it would highlight in red, so that you would immediately know that there is something wrong. And doesn't really mean that you immediately have to change something in your project, because maybe something in other projects can be changed, but at least you have the information regarding that, right? So that's really, really cool. All right, so that's resources. Teams I'm actually going to skip, because it's really simple, and I think we don't want to waste time talking about teams, but I will now jump into risks so that we can have a look at the risk module. So risk module allows you to capture your risks in your project. I'm going to collapse it into the compact mode so that we can see a little bit more on the screen. And risk module gives you the visualization of the data in 2 different perspectives. So we can either look at the risk matrix that we can see over here, or if I scroll down, you can also look at the same data. This is exactly the same list that is in the matrix in a table view, right? So it's kind of whatever you prefer. If you're a table person, then you can have a look at the table. You can actually even disable the matrix altogether like that, and you can just have the table, or you can leave both like I usually do. And I prefer working really with the matrix, because it's a little bit more friendly in terms of the UI, and some things are faster over here. So for example, adding new element on the matrix, if I want to add an element with a certain probability or certain consequence, and by the way, the values over here and names can be changed if you need to, then I just choose the right cell in the column, click on it, add an existing issue, search for that issue. So let's just add whatever over here, and you can see that probability and consequence values are already pre-filled for me, and the task immediately appears over here, just like I asked it to. If I then decide that the task should actually not be here, but in some other cell, I can just drag and drop it to another cell, and it's also done immediately. So that's why I prefer working with the matrix. Oh, there's also actually one more feature that I like on a matrix level. So let me switch off the compact mode. So the information that you can see here on these cards is customizable. So for example, I can switch to the different view risk that I've been looking at. So then the cards are changing the data and showing different fields from Jira. But I can also turn on this magnifying glass that is kind of showing me the risk card in the enlarged view, which is pretty great for any kind of risk review meetings where you're sharing the risks or discussing the risks with your team or teams. And you can present the risks then over here in kind of like a full screen view. If you want to edit the fields from this side or this level, you can also do this like that. You can fill in the risk mitigation plan immediately as well, or edit the information that you would have over here. So, and switch to other risks and other risk cards if you want to. So that's a really cool feature as well. Other than that, there are some strategies regarding managing risks, how you should create those risks, what should be those risks inside your Jira, but we don't have time to delve into this or dive into this. So I'll just move on to the calendar module, which is one of the new additions to BigPicture. So a pretty fresh one, and it basically allows you to look at your data in a calendar-like view. So you always are looking at the whole month over here, and for every day, you can see the list of tasks that are supposed to be happening during that time frame. So some of them are being displayed here as entries, as lines on your calendar. Some of them just don't fit, so they are hidden. But if you hit over here, show all tasks, you can actually see the full list of what is currently happening. And on the right side, you have a very nice summary of what is exactly happening today, tomorrow, and the following days of the month. So you can quickly identify what is going to be happening. And if you want to filter things, then filtering, of course, is also available over here. So narrowing down the data to, for example, have a look at the tasks that are only my tasks can also be done, and the list gets a lot cleaner now, because apparently not many tasks are assigned to the user that I'm currently logged in as. Right, so that's a calendar, pretty simple, but useful tool as well. Reports module, as I mentioned, could be a little bit better, but still have some interesting features that I want to show to you. So first of all, you get some predefined reports for you. And these are the first 5 reports that you will always get. With BigPicture Enterprise extension, you will be able to create more reports or edit the existing ones. And then when you edit the reports, they are basically based around the grouping functionality, which basically allows you to create the group by options, so that you can have a report that is breaking your data by a specific parameter, and then you can drill down up to 4 levels into what you already have, right? So for example, here I have a report that is dividing my data per assignee. So I can see the list of people over here. If I hover my mouse over the person, I can see some more details regarding, for example, how many, well, in this case, the report is created around story points, I believe. So it's showing me how many story points are assigned to that person out of the whole pool of story points in my project, right? So I can see 70 story points out of 311 in the middle of the circle. And then I can dive in to see the breakdown per status, but unfortunately all of those tasks are in progress, so we don't get the breakdown. And then I can get into another level, which is, in my case, risk consequence, right? So there are several levels that you can dive in on the level of every report over here to get more data out of it. But unfortunately, that's basically it, right? So it allows you to look at the data per grouping functionality, and that visualization is done really, really well. But it would be cool if you could create kind of several more types of the reports, maybe some more advanced ones. I think that would be really, really nice to have. And then let me have a look at the time. Yeah, we still have time to cover the Agile aspect of BigPicture. So I told you that BigPicture is also allowing you to work in the Agile manner, and actually also is, I believe, the only tool that is currently working well in a hybrid approach as well, right? So if you're working waterfall and Agile at the same time, I think that BigPicture is actually the only tool that is supporting you in a decent way in this approach. But we're not going to cover this as well. We're going to just talk about the Agile approach. An Agile approach, I believe, should start with capturing the objectives that are in front of you. So when you're doing the Agile, you probably are breaking down your project into smaller pieces, right? Essentially, most of the time, these are sprints. Sometimes you have another element above sprints, like I do. So I actually have my project broken down into two levels. So the first level is PI, which is program increment. And then I have a lower level that is called an iteration, which essentially is a sprint, right? So I have two levels of my hierarchy of boxes in my project. And let's focus on the program increment level, because over here, I have some interesting data regarding my objectives defined. So you can define objectives for the time box that you can have over here. And those time boxes then can be, in my case, they are program increments taken from the SAFe methodology, but they can be phases of your project. They can be quarters or half a years or whatever else, releases, for example, right? Whatever else you would need to capture as a time frame. And then you can define objectives for this particular time frame, either general objectives for the time frame itself, for the box itself, or even team-specific objectives, right? So that gives you a very, very good tool for something that is called objective-based planning, which I personally believe is a right way of managing people and projects, because the alternative basically is micromanagement, which I think sucks. So I'm always very, very happy and always try to convince my customers that this is the tool for you, this is the module for you, and this is the way you should be doing your project planning, because this is where you give people the vision and the direction, and this should always be happening before you get into the definition of your work breakdown structure or projects, because in this case, you probably will be working more often than not with the Agile approach, right? So you will be starting to create your backlog to then support those objectives that you have over here. Okay, so of course you can then mark those objectives as done or failed or abandoned. You can get some summaries of how many objectives have been completed versus what was expected. So a lot of interesting things happening over here. But let's get to the next step of the Agile planning, which would be the definition of the backlog or grooming of the backlog. So this can be done on the Gantt view actually pretty nicely as well, but it can also be done in a scope module, which is like a left part of the Gantt. So you don't get a Gantt chart, but you get this table view with all the data. And over here, you can manage the data quite nicely. The feature that I like the most over here, which is actually available on in BigPicture Data Center and Server, is that you can turn on this detailed view. So it's not available in the cloud version of Jira, unfortunately. If you turn on the detailed view, the screen is split in half, and on the right side, you get this issue view screen, basically, which has all the important information regarding the issue. And this is configurable, so if something is missing over here, you can just add an additional field. And then you can edit everything from this level, right? So even if some of the fields are not editable over here, because BigPicture allows you to inline edit basically the text fields and numerical fields, but if you need to edit something else, it's actually editable from over here. So then you can go issue by issue and change the things that you want. And this is really probably the fastest way of grooming the backlog of all the issues that you might have. If you would need to add more issues, you can always hit the create button over here, which will bring the standard Jira create screen, and you can just input all the important information and create a new issue if necessary. All right. So after you populated the backlog, groomed the backlog, it's time to do the planning. So the planning is done on the board module. This is the place where I've mentioned at the beginning, or somewhere close to the beginning, that you can actually synchronize the boxes that you have here with your Jira boards. And this is exactly what could be happening over here. So these iterations, I told you that essentially they are sprints. So I can synchronize them with also Jira sprints if I want to have the two-way synchronization with the places that my Agile team might be working on inside Jira already before the introduction of BigPicture, right? So you don't have to even revolutionize things. You can do the smooth introduction of the tool itself. And then you basically have the backlog on the right side, have the nice visual view of what is happening and when in terms of your time boxes on the left side. And then you can use the drag and drop to plan things just like that. So I can, for example, take this issue and I can say it's going to be happening in iteration 3 over here in team astronauts, right? So I will just drop this one here. It's being added. Let me see what I'm looking at over here. Yeah, let's change it to capacity allocation. My capacity allocation will automatically be updated over here. And this is also a pretty cool way of actually looking at how much tasks you can still add to the team in a certain time frame before the team gets over allocated, right? So you do the planning, you drag the things and drop it over here until the teams are full. And of course, you should also make sure that the tasks that you are planning are correct in terms of fulfilling the objectives that have been assigned. And also, if you have some kind of dependencies between tasks, it always is worth checking them out as well. And there are some features over here that allow you to, for example, only show the incorrect dependencies to spot them quickly. There is one over here, actually, the red one going like this, which is bad because this task should be done before this task, and it's the other way around. So apparently someone planned it wrong, and it should be probably reversed, right? So there are also some nice indicators allowing you to react to some problems, like this one, for example, where I can see immediately that the team is over allocated. So probably some tasks should be taken out, maybe moved to the next iteration, next sprint, to fix the problem that we have over here. Then you can also switch these totals, these summaries that are visible over here, to the work progress mode, and then follow the progress of what is happening. So that's pretty cool as well. And then they will be showing you that, for example, 3 tasks out of 3, so 50% have already been completed, or you can do it by story points, or you can do it by hourly estimates. So lots of different features over here. Yeah, and again, I could dive more into more details, a lot more details over here, but I think this is enough for, some kind of most important introduction, right? So this is the tool. I think I covered the most important features. There's definitely a lot more that could be added, but if this doesn't convince you, then I guess you will have to stay with whatever you're working with currently, or maybe if you're looking into something else, then of course maybe there is a better tool in your particular case, in your particular circumstances. All right, so we have a couple of minutes left, like more or less 10 minutes. Therefore, I will go into the Q&A and have a look at the questions that are available over there. So, okay, I will start from the bottom. Suggestion from budgeting analyst for projects that works with Jira and BigPicture. Yeah, so there is a good add-on that is developed by the Tempo team. It's called, I don't remember exactly, but I can find it. Let's do it like this. Something with costs in the name. Cost tracker for Tempo timesheets. This one. So that's the one that is. It's a new add-on for actually the cloud. So I actually should mention that if you're asking about the cloud version, then this is the one I would go to. If you're asking about the server version, there is actually a very robust add-on also developed by Tempo called Tempo Budgets. It can work with BigPicture. BigPicture even has an integration with Tempo plugins. It's a one-way integration, unfortunately, so it only takes data from Tempo and brings it into BigPicture. It does require the BigPicture Enterprise extension, but I think that if you're thinking about budgeting, then these are probably the best plugins from the Tempo producer. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. And when starting a project, we begin with planning. Can we initiate it with BigPicture, or should we create issues in Jira with their dependencies and then use BigPicture just to show this data in form of Gantt? So you can actually do both. You can actually do both. I would recommend to start to create a fresh box in BigPicture and start populating from there. Why? Because the visualization is already there. So I will go to my smaller project like this one. And I will give you an example, a very quick one. So I have been building this one step by step. Let's go to the Gantt. So step by step, meaning task by task, really, right? So I have been creating this one task by task, and it's quite easy over here. So for example, let's say that after the design over here, I want to have another element that will also be connected with design. So all I have to do is to select this issue underneath which I want to create the next one, and go here to create a Jira issue and say new design task. I can, of course, oh yeah, I have a bug in my version, unfortunately, so I can't do this. But I should be able to also change over here the issue type of the element I want to create. And then you just hit create, and it should be added immediately to your view over here. In my case, it got added as a subtask, so I have to expand it, but it immediately appears exactly where you wanted it to be, right? And that's the thing I love about it, that you kind of, if you create those tasks in Jira, then they will be all over the place, unless you immediately define start and end dates as well, right? But if you do it from over here, then they will always appear in the hierarchy where you want them to be. And then you can easily grab, for example, the end or the beginning of the task and expand it however it should be expanded to place it in the right place on the timeline as well. So that's my preferable way of doing things. Although, as I said, it can work actually both ways. So it's not like this is the only possible one. Can you show progress on Gantt as progress bar on tasks? Can you use time estimates or only story points? So you can use both. You can use story point. You can use story points. Okay, with story points, you can't have progress. Why? Because story points are used for the Agile way of planning, and in the Agile way of reporting, you don't really report 3 story points done out of 7 on the task, right? Either the task is completed and all the story points are done or not, right? So then you actually should be doing the reporting based on the statuses. But if you're doing with the hourly reports, then you can, of course, have some indicators of the progress of the task. So we'll go to my demo project because I will have the data over here. And first of all, so I will make this one a little bit bigger. There's a time tracking column, right? And this one is showing you the data regarding the progress of the task. And this is coming from, the estimate of the task. And then however time has been reported on the task will show you the progress. So I would say that this is probably the most convenient way. But there is also this switch in the view that allows you to show the progress on the level of the bars themselves. So let me zoom out and find some examples. Right, so let's zoom in on this area. Right, you can see, for example, that this task has some coloring done more or less to the half of the task because the progress of the task is 56%, right? So you also can get the progress indicators here on the level of the bars. I usually don't use it myself. I prefer to have the bar over here, but it's definitely doable. An idea how to track risks, but positive and negative in BigPicture. So threats and opportunities. So BigPicture or Jira itself actually allows you to create different issue types. And I would go with issue types over here. So you could create a separate issue type for threats and separate issue types for opportunities. Then those issue types can have different workflows. They can have different set of fields that they will be using as capturing the data for them if there is a need for that. And I would distinguish it like this. Or alternatively, you could create, for example, one issue type of a risk, general risk, and then have a custom field on the level of that issue type and 2 values over there, threat or opportunity, right? And people would have to select whether it is a threat or an opportunity. So I think these are the 2 easiest way of doing this. But then one way or another, both of those will be absolutely showable on the risk module in BigPicture. The next one, how to start convincing MSP user to go to BigPicture. Can you show first planning session in BigPicture? If you're asking if we can, for example, have a meeting and if I can show you users how the planning session in BigPicture would look like, yeah, sure, we can do this. Today, of course, that would take too much time, so we are not going to be doing it. But generally, I think that the biggest selling point when you're talking about Microsoft Project and BigPicture or Jira itself is about this integration, right? That the tool is immediately integrated with the environment where people are actually working on their tasks. And if someone is not going to get convinced by this, then you might talk about costs. Maybe that's an important aspect in your company. But in terms of the functionality, it will probably be hard, because in many cases, when the company is working with Microsoft Project, they are working with the waterfall approach, right? And Microsoft Project is doing quite well in the waterfall approach, and I can really not say many bad things about Microsoft Project. As I said, it is one of the most adult tools on the market, so it has all it needs. But if the company would, for example, be considering moving to the more agile way, then you probably will have to look around for more agile solutions, right? And then the discussion again could be a little bit easier. All right, and last one, objectives are written descriptions or they are specific issues in Jira. It actually is both. So they can be both. You can have on the roadmap your objectives as just text objectives that are actually visible only in BigPicture and not visible outside of BigPicture, so Jira will not know about them. But there is also a way of adding objectives as Jira issues. So if I choose to add a new objective, I can add an artificial objective over here that will be just text. But if I switch this toggle, I can actually search for Jira issues and add a specific Jira issue, which has to be created earlier as an objective. So for example, objective to do something important over here, I could select this one and add this one as an objective, and this will be a Jira issue. And you can see that some of them are Jira issues. So the ones with the icon and the issue key link over here are the ones that are actually my Jira issues. All right, so that would be all. That would be all, because I don't see any more questions coming. Thanks a lot again for joining and listening. I think that I should still remind that if you want to contact us, then these are the email addresses that you can use. We also have some materials on our YouTube channel that could help you start the journey with BigPicture. Like, for example, an overview. If you would like to share an overview of BigPicture inside your organization, then you can visit our YouTube channel and have a look at the list of videos we have over there. The last one we've uploaded was, for example, about the skill-based planning. So you can see how the skill-based planning looks like in BigPicture. And it's quite an interesting feature as well, which I didn't mention today. And that would be all, right? So if you would be interested in any kind of services regarding the help of the implementation, remember that you can always reach out to us. The first session that we will have will be always free, and we can talk about what you have, what you're looking for, whether the tool is good for you or not. So we will always tell you if we think that it would be better to go with something else, and maybe BigPicture is not the best fit for you, because we actually care about you having a successful project management tool and environment, and not just making money. So hopefully we will see or hear each other sometime in the future. Thanks a lot for today. Appreciate you all joining. If you haven't been here on the live session, this video will also be available on our YouTube channel. So if you're watching it over there as well, thanks for watching, and see you next time.